And um, in your previous work in Marx with Spinoza, you sort of have always, and it's just a stream in all of your work, which is you return to this question of potentia, the collective power that persists even under domination. How do you understand solidarity and class struggle as sort of expressions of immanent power rather than as transcendent ruptures? And what forms of collective life or imagination still carry the possibility of transforming the affects that bind us to work?
Yeah, I mean, maybe partly to answer that is I do want to say a little more about negative solidarity to get to solidarity, because so negative solidarity is, and I borrowed the term itself from Alex Williams, but where he wrote about this strange tendency where, to go back to the classic example of school teachers, like school teachers also get quote unquote summers off, although it's not really true because most of them have to take another job. But anyways, they have union protections, they have less demanding schedules, and they get to do something meaningful. And so part of the response to school teachers has not been, hey, why don't I have union protections? Why don't I have more time off? Why don't I get to do something meaningful? Why should they have it? Right? It's a strange solidarity. It's sort of this, I mean, the epitome of it is this idea that we're all working and these other people are somehow getting away with not working quite as hard. And rather than say, oh, maybe we should have some of the same protections, maybe we shouldn't work as hard. It's more or less a negative solidarity in that it sort of seeks to kind of bring everyone down to the same level. But there is a strange solidarity in it, right? The sort of epitome of negative solidarity in my mind is the popular bumper sticker, work harder, millions of welfare depend upon you. It's a strange bumper sticker in the US because in recent years, since the Clinton administration, quote unquote welfare or need to families of dependent children has been whittled away to being something incredibly small and incredibly micromanaged and caught up with surveillance and so on, that it's not quite the luxurious life it's made out to be, but yet it still exists as kind of a fantasy. And the fantasy also includes now the idea that people who are undocumented have access to it, which is not at all true. You can't. But still, there's this fantasy that someone else is not working. Now, of course, to Marxist ears, it's a strange thing to say, and I've seen the bumper sticker, work harder, billionaires depend upon you, right? That to some extent, it misrecognizes where the source of exploitation is. It's not to be found in the welfare recipient. It's to be found in, the increasing wealth of billionaires and so on. So there is a kernel of solidarity in there. There is a kernel of a kind of strange we, of a kind of sense like we're all working here, even though that kernel has been like warped and distorted. So it's only aimed downward at fellow workers and not upward. So I do think that, I mean, part of the question, and this still is a lingering question to me, um, and in that, like, I have, I mean, the question is, what will it take to construct a positive form of solidarity? And I do think that it would require um, a obviously a recognition of work as a collective rather than an individual effort, a recognition that all work is irreducibly collective, that even as you do something, even by yourself, you're dependent upon the way in which others have taught you or shaped the way in which you do that individual thing, that it demands a recognition of the collective nature of our own existence and a reimagining of what that entails. And I think the other thing that it also entails, and this is, I think, the hard part, I don't want to say that we should form, I mean, some people have made the argument that we should form a kind of solidarity around work itself, that we're all workers, even unwaged workers and so on. But my concern about that is that I think that we, as much as that's necessary as one element, it's also necessary for us to kind of address or critique the dominance of work over our imaginations of ourselves. Right? Because I do think that the goal is not to make work the basis of a commonality, but to also at the same time And, this is a hard thing to do. And Kathy Weeks talks about how we need to have a demand for better work, but also a demand for less work. We have
Yeah.
to simultaneously, to quote Kathy, sorry, I've just been teaching Kathy Weeks, so I'm thinking about this a lot. We have to simultaneously critique the overvaluation of work at the level of ontology or ethics, right? The way in which work is seen as central to who we are, while also
Yeah.
critiquing the undervaluation of work at the level of economics and material reality, right? The work is simultaneously overvalued, and that's like it's what gives you worth in society, but it's and of course and undervalued in that it's not paid enough and so on. Of course, and those two things, I argue, they go together. They're flip sides of the same coin. That to some extent the overvaluation of it ethically is offered as a strange kind of compensation for its undervaluation materially, right? This sort of sense of like, oh, you get to see yourself as a worker. So we have to address both those things at once in constructing another and different imagination of how we strive, one that recognizes more of our collective interdependence rather than our individual capabilities as the basis for existence.